It's not like I didn't warn you. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most to start your girlfriends, wives, and especially your boyfriends and your husbands. A very warm welcome to Friday's edition of the DCU Daily, and I've got another one of those juicy exclusives for you. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad, X on Snapchat BMouth60, and on TikTok Mad Mickey's World. It's funny, you know, a few weeks ago, Scooper Daniel RPK said this: I'm hearing really good things about Supergirl. So that was very, very interesting to me. I didn't believe a word of it, so I put my ear to the ground. You see, the thing is, I'd already been hearing really bad things about Supergirl. The thing is with me, I don't have to investigate. I don't have to ask people for information because my father was working in a studio when I was, when I was younger. He worked in a Hollywood studio, as I've mentioned a few times. I know a lot of people who work for studios, and they'll say, Mick, guess what? Mick, guess this. Oh my God, you never hear about what this celebrity's up to, right? I know so much juicy gossip about celebrities, for example, and what's going on movie sets and movie productions. The thing is, I'm very responsible with what I release to the public because I don't really want to talk about celebrity gossip. I'm not the kind of person who enjoys negativity and destroying people. But I'm here talking about the DCU. So when I hear something about this upcoming Supergirl movie, it's absolutely right that you guys get to know about it, because that's the part of my role here at Movies TV Mad. So, what have I found out about this movie? This movie's a mess, it sucks, she's a girl boss, and let's briefly talk about Jason Momoa's Lobo. I actually think it's quite a betrayal Jason Momoa took his 30 pieces of silver to play Lobo in the first place. He claims he's a big Lobo fan, he's been hyping it up. He's nothing but a toxic male in this movie. That's what he is, right? For his brief appearance in this movie, and it is really, really brief. We've seen little shots on location of him fighting Supergirl. He's the toxic male that the girl boss has to deal with. And I'm not surprised, but nobody should be surprised that this movie is a mess. Nobody should be surprised that Millie Alcock's Supergirl is a girl boss that has to deal with this toxic male Lobo. And that is just the tip of the iceberg, everyone. Right now, in editing, James Gunn's trying to find a way to make this movie watchable, like he was doing with Superman. So it's an utter mess. And it'll be really, really interesting how they put this piece of shit together. I am not surprised. And I've warned you about this many, many times. You know, this movie was written by this woman who's meant to be doing the Teen Titans movie. It's clear she's a bit of a, gaslighter, a bit of a anti-male person, as they all are in Hollywood. James Gunn is a male feminist. We can see that from his other work. And this movie, from what I hear, and I absolutely believe the people who have told me this, that it's an absolute mess. Because there was another red flag as well, if you ask me. Because this movie was supposed to have the same title as the comic book, the graphic novel it was supposed to be adapting. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, but they cut the Woman of Tomorrow out the title, just like he cut the Legacy out of Superman Legacy. Now, I don't know why he did that. I think it's been done because it isn't very faithful to the source material. I think it will be faithful up to a point, but yeah, I'm hearing that this movie is an absolute disaster area, and it will be interesting what the director of this movie has to say when they start promoting it. Sooner rather than later, they're going to have a trailer for this movie. I think they'll have a trailer for Lanterns first, than Supergirl. So I'll be very excited to see how they've put a teaser together for this Supergirl movie, but I'm hearing really, really bad things. So I don't know where Daniel RPK's lug holes have been placing themselves, because I haven't heard one positive thing about this movie. This is a very, very angry Supergirl, a very angry, aggressive Supergirl. As I say, we saw how Gunn had wrote her in that little clip in Superman when she calls Superman, a pure-hearted hero, a bitch. Absolutely no need. It didn't make any fucking sense, did it? And you know, Supergirl. Now, this Supergirl writer said, well, you know, it doesn't make sense to me for her to be sunny and bright and inspirational because she saw Krypton get destroyed. Oh, really? Oh, really? Again, it makes no sense. You know, good inspirational people can come from negative situations, so it makes no fucking sense. Maybe her seeing Krypton being destroyed made her more determined, you know, to be a hero and to appreciate Earth and what's around her, this beautiful world, and to protect it. Oh no, she has to be a negative drunk who hates man, and this, I'm hearing, is this version of Supergirl. And this should not surprise you, this should not be a shock, because Hollywood never ever learn. This is a female-led movie, of course. She has to be a bitch. Of course she has to hate men. Of course Lobo has to be a toxic male. Of course. You wouldn't want to make a positive female role model, right? No. She has to be an alcoholic. She has to hate men. And Lobo has to be a toxic male. Of course. That's all they know. Hollywood have always been obsessed with gender politics. But the way, look, they can't write women. I've told you before. And the worst people to write women in modern movies are women, because these women live in California. They're not real women. They're not working class women. They don't live in council estates bringing up, you know, children on their own. They're not living hand to mouth. These are dames that get liposuction and lay on fucking sunbeds all day. They wouldn't know how to write for you women if they tried. They don't know you. Don't listen to them. They're not looking to represent you. They're not representing you. You, who maybe have suffered abuse in your life. Maybe you struggle, you're living hand to mouth. You've gone through, you know, the normal stuff that every general woman or girl goes through. These women living in California don't know the rougher side of life. So, you know, Tom King's graphic novel is pretty much that Supergirl, right? But there's some really brilliant, you know, versions of Supergirl in the comics they could have touched on. But oh no, they went on this one. Now, I kind of like the story. It's okay. But from what I'm hearing from this movie, it's absolutely disastrous. And I'm hearing a lot of bad things about this movie. The actual production was an absolute disaster. And as I say, right now, they're trying to put this movie together and they don't know what to fucking do. Obviously, as usual, Zaslav is involved and they're looking at it. What you do with it, right? Well, you can't shine shit. And I'm sure there will be an element of reshoots. And it will be interesting if they do show this to test screening audiences. And it will be very interesting what those test audiences will make of it. There was another red flag when they revealed the poster. What did it say? If I can recall, it said, look away. Very, very good fucking advice from what I'm hearing, right? That poster tells you everything. It's the kind of Shazam vibe, isn't it? She, you know, it's just typical of them. They don't know how to uplift people's emotions. They don't know how to make people laugh, cry, but ultimately, more importantly, they don't know how to make you care about characters. That review of Superman I read for you a few weeks back where it said, you can basically give me any shit, as long as I care about what's going on, I care about the story, and I care about the characters. Yeah, say so. Yeah, so say all of us. But that's what Hollywood and Western English speaking entertainment are unable to do these days. When I watch these old TV shows and these old movies and I see how amazing they were, and you could tell that people really thought deeply about what they were making. And that's not what's going on anymore. So, just to wrap all of this part of the show up, Supergirl is a mess. She's a girl boss. Lobo is a toxic male, and you're not going to get anything more than that. And that's what I've been told about the movie. And it's not just one person telling me this, it's more than one person. People get really surprised how my exclusive videos come out to be true. Like when I said The Brave and the Bold wasn't happening. Where is The Brave and the Bold? Where is the DCU Batman? Nowhere to be seen. But don't worry, everyone. James Gunn has a secret writer and he's very excited about it. Also, James Gunn says the film is in flux. The DCU Batman is in flux. You're either excited about something that's happening or it's not fucking happening. It can only be one or other. So, again, he keeps on changing what he says. But this movie sounds like a disaster. And of course, I will keep you updated with what's going on with Supergirl. Now we're going to move to the other news in the DC universe. Now I found this captioned on X Twitter. Now I need to disclaim this from saying I don't know how true it is because people say any old shit on the internet. But apparently, according to an interview from Vogue, now I didn't find this directly on Vogue, but someone captioned it. Now this is from Jenna Ortega. So again, I don't know how true it is, but it wouldn't surprise me. Wednesday's Jenna Ortega reveals to Vogue that her favourite CBM of all time is Man of Steel by Zack Snyder. I've been obsessed with this movie since it came out. I find it very underrated. Zack Snyder is truly a genius. Now, it's interesting because ever since Superman was released this year, more and more people are finding the confidence to admit they love Man of Steel. It's funny how a bad adaptation of a character suddenly motivates people to be braver and honest. Man of Steel is a wonderful generational movie. It's fucking brilliant. It has beautiful visuals and production values and storytelling. And while we're at it, a guy on Twitter called Emrin Hand, who talks about movies and gives information you may not know about movies, right? Gives little, little things that maybe you didn't know what was going on set, blah, blah, blah. So he claimed that Superman killing Zod in Man of Steel wasn't always what was going to happen, that Superman was going to trap him in the Phantom Zone. Something that that's my idea, that's what I wanted to happen, right? But according to Emrin Hand, Zack Snyder insisted that Superman killed Zod. This is simply not true. David S. Goyer is the brain behind Man of Steel. It was his idea while he had writer's block, while writing The Dark Knight Rises. He came up with the idea of a First Contact Superman movie. Basically, a First Contact story for Superman. It was David S. Goyer who wanted Superman to kill Zod. It was Christopher Nolan who he penned the story with, who obviously made the Dark Knight movies with Goyer. Basically, the Dark Knight trilogy was from the vision of Christopher Nolan. But Man of Steel is from the vision of David Goyer. It was his idea for Superman to kill off Zod. And even Nolan said when he first saw it, he said, hang on, David, are you sure about this? Then Goyer explained his reasonings and his process around Superman killing Zod. So, Superman killing Zod had nothing to do with Zack Snyder. Stop blaming or crediting Snyder for this. Snyder was in charge of the visual storytelling. Goyer and Nolan were in charge of the script and the story, right? That's why Nolan's production company was producing Man of Steel. They were in charge of this movie, front and center. So let's get that out there once and for all. So let's continue. James Gunn says he understands Kevin Feige. Well, I'm not surprised. Better after taking charge of DC Studios. Wow, am I reading this right? James Gunn says he understands Kevin Feige better after taking charge of DC Studios. I often see myself doing the same thing with directors or writers. Oh, really, James? Well, Kevin Feige is famous for not treating writers and directors very well. He directs the directors and he writes the writers, basically. So you basically confess that that's what you're doing. This quote is such a fucking red flag. James Gunn should actually listen to himself speaking before he speaks. He should have a security guard to check what he's going to say before he makes it public. I often see myself doing the same thing with directors or writers, so I understand Kevin more now, and I've learned a lot from him. I've always liked Kevin. I never had problems with Kevin in terms of working with him. It was a really, really good partnership. It's interesting, this is from the Hollywood Reporter, by the way, so a really good source that we can believe. This is crazy, because we all know how Feige works. We all know what the MCU is. It's a product. They're not making films and TV shows, they're making a product. The DCU isn't making films and TV shows, it's making a product. But him admitting that he's treating directors and writers like Feige does isn't a good thing. And finally today, it looks like we won't get a third series of Peacemaker. Do you care? Do I care? Absolutely not. Gunn confirms there are no plans for Peacemaker Season 3. That doesn't mean there aren't plans for these characters, but it's not necessarily Season 3 of Peacemaker. And then people should watch Episode 8 to see what happens. Yeah, because you're desperate for the viewers. Because maybe some of your questions will be answered in that episode by itself, by James Gunn. So, it looks like no way in any reality is Peacemaker getting a season 3. I question why it got a season 2. I really enjoyed the first season. I think James Gunn should be in his little corner, making more Peacemakers, making Suicide Squad sequels, the Waller series, all of that. He should be in his little factory doing that for DC. He shouldn't be running DC though, right? There shouldn't be a connective universe. Everyone should have their different corners in the DC universe. People with visions and ideas, right? Not people trying to make a product. Not people trying to make content.